Yeah, quick note, in the middle of a random episode, but we are releasing Wheel of Time TV show content on YouTube. It is not dropping in the podcast feed. So if you want to hear us talk about the TV show, you have to go jump on the visual medium, go to our YouTube channel, which is now monetized. So yes, you're going to have to see some ads to watch that content.
Unless you have YouTube Red, which I continue to pay for and continue to love. Just saying. YouTube Premium,
Sweet.
whatever the fuck it's called. It's totally worth it, in my opinion. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I should think about that. I watch enough YouTube, and my ad blockers aren't working so well anymore.
It's really nice. I love paying to get away from ads. I'm a sucker for not dealing with ads. That's what money is for. But yeah, we have a YouTube channel, and you should go check it out. And there are good reasons for that we will announce more properly and coherently, not in the middle of an episode.
Do we have other reasons?
The fucking thing that we have to organize.
Oh, that thing. Yeah. Okay. I'm
thing.
sorry. I know you're referencing that. We are punchy tonight. This is going to take some editing.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Chapter 8.
A simple country woman.
Hardly. Right under the giant line of Andor.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one where the title and the icon really work together well to play off of each other. Like, I think they did a really good job on this one to sort of show that contrast and be like, just a simple woman.
Right, this big mama lion that's just like, he's gonna give her what? Like,
Manetharin what?
Morgase. Yeah, like, I've heard of you. And Lini's like, what was this backstory that you told us we were going with? What? It's hilarious how much she is good at self-delusion.
Mm-hmm. And so this chapter very much drops us in directly after the previous one. This is more of a break in not so much a new POV or a new scene, just so much as a break from the last chapter where Perrin discovered Maighdin, aka Morgase, and her band of Andoran refugee misfits.
Yeah, whatever their party is called. But yeah, we're still in Perrin's POV. We're still in the same moment. He is still looking at the camp. Like, there is nothing different from where we were at with the last chapter.
So I'm not even doing a read-in on this one.
I agree. There's nothing here.
So they've been traveling, avoiding notice as much as possible, because up to this point they've been trying to keep Massima from knowing that they were even there.
And now that's done away with.
3 camps, right? So he's got the Winged Guards, number 1.
Right. 900 people.
The Gaishine and Wise One camp.
Yep. And most of the Gaishine are Shido, which creeps Perrin out.
Because he doesn't trust... Because they violated Ji'ito, so why wouldn't they continue to do so? It's a valid concern, and one that never really comes up, but...
It doesn't, ever play into anything. But it's a really valid concern, nonetheless.
And then you have the Two Rivers folks.
Yeah. I mean, there's Aes Sedai peppered throughout. But yeah, as far as the 3 camps go. The Winged Guards, so that's Barrowland and Mayan, the Wise Ones, the Aiel, the Two Rivers. 3 camps, well over 1,000 people, all agreeing on exactly one thing, which is that Perrin isn't the worst. Everything else is up for debate.
Well, the Two Rivers folks are being led by Perrin, right? Directly. The other 2 have sworn to Rand and have been given to Perrin. Right, so the Aiel are sworn to Rand and have been told, I need you to help Perrin on this task.
Right, they're following him for the Dragon Reborn, not for himself. Yet. They will follow him for himself later.
And I think that's when you go from having 3 camps to 1 camp.
Right, yeah. Too many personalities, too many goals. For now. Mm-hmm. You just got to mature a little bit, have a little wife being kidnapped, like, you'll season right into it.
I get a description of his 2 Ashaman, which is, I'm jumping through quite a bit here because there's a lot of description of all of these characters, all of these camps, not necessarily something that I think we need to go into detail, especially having just done a lot of that in the previous chapter.
Yeah. The thing I think that's relevant is Balwer.
Yeah.
The way that he is introduced, he's like a wolf testing the air, and he's seeing more than even Maighdin is. Like, it's just very like, and Balwer, in the course of this walk, decides he wants to work for Perrin. You know? Like, what Maighdin's like, I want to be around this guy, he has power. Balwer has, I think, decided in like 5 minutes that he wants to become advisor to this leader.
Or at least try.
At least try. He needs to test his mettle first, but I think he is intrigued and on board because he's a loose cannon. Well, not loose cannon, but he's adrift.
Yes.
Balwer doesn't have anyone to follow. He probably thought Morgase would be someone he could follow, but she's not Morgase anymore, so he's literally adrift. He needs a powerful person to serve. He sees Perrin, he's like, that will do. Let's go. And then it works out really, really well for both of them.
Well, I think of this as a good first date.
Yeah,
Nobody's committed to anything yet, but that army's looking hot. Let's see.
Let's do this again sometime.
I had a great time tonight. How about you?
Yeah, that's very much what's happening there. But yeah, I agree. We don't need to go through the fact that armies exist and have horses and need food. I don't think that needs.
Maybe a little later I can share my secrets unprotected. That's a whole different kind of ship.
Yeah. Entirely different fleet of ships.
That would be a pigeon wolf.
That's just that. I mean, I'm sure it would work for somebody.
Wow. So obviously there is not a lot in the beginning of this that we really want to cover.
Perrin's grumpy about tents and beds and luxury. He doesn't like glamping.
I did think it's interesting that Gillidan was part of Manetheren. I didn't realize that.
So I was actually looking at the timeline thing from Amazon that goes with the show.
Yeah.
And I had never put together how close Gillidan was to the Two Rivers until that map.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally looking at that map, and they have, not many push pins on the map for you to click on. And I'm like, Gillidan's right there? Like, I never put that together. So, yeah, it makes sense that it was part of Manetheren because it's right there.
And that's the thing is, the Two Rivers is on the edge of Andor, right? It is the last bit of Andor. Well, that means there's something on the right there on the other side, and that something is Gillidan. It's just there's a mountains of mist in the way, so it's very hard to get to.
Yeah.
As far as the Two Rivers folks are concerned, it might as well be even further away than Andor, because basically to get to Gillidan, you have to travel through Andor and then around, right? So until, of course, all of these troubles and people have been dying to come over the hills.
Yeah, more desperate people will make the trek when they have less to carry and all of that.
And I think we've seen that play out on the southern border here in the U.S., right? Like we've seen as things have become more desperate and as we've seen dictators take over in Southern America, we've seen a flood of refugees coming to the border. And a lot of them are dying to get over the border, despite knowing that that's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. And I was always confused about, I don't understand, if people never came over before to the Two Rivers, why did they start now? And I realized, well, before it was never worth risking death.
It wasn't worth it. Yeah. But now it is. Now so the situation is desperate enough that you will take those odds and people will die and enough people will try that some will get through. That's, plenty of real world examples to explain why it's happening now.
That's one of those things that as a kid I didn't really understand, but as I've gotten older and understood politics and refugees and what gets people to move and what creates those sorts of situations, I've had a lot more understanding of people risking their lives in mountainous territories to try and cross into a safer civilization.
I had not thought of it in that context, but it works. That makes a lot of sense. Yet another life lesson the Wheel of Time was feeding to me, even though I didn't realize that there was such a potent real-world connection.
It's just, there's so much. This is what I love. I go off on these rants, but Jordan built such a realistic world with so many details from our world that he read so much, he studied so much, he knew so much, that he put all these details in that even if it's not necessarily what he was intending, because he built a real world, those details we can create the even larger world behind it that maybe even Jordan wasn't necessarily aware of.
Yeah, I just standing ovation every time. Yes, that is why his world is one of the best I've ever encountered in everything.
And it's why I have no problem making things more modern with relationships when it comes to race and ethnicity and sexuality issues, right? Like, our understanding has changed, but the world is real enough that we can apply that understanding to his real world.
Yeah. It's amazing and wonderful, and I love Jordan for it, and it makes me all the happier that I literally have his stuff tattooed into my flesh. It's just like, the harder I dig, the better it gets. So this is good stuff.
And again, I apologize for continuing to talk about the TV show, but we are riding a high on that trailer release.
It was yesterday, as recording goes.
Yeah.
That was yesterday. It's, the enthusiasm for how good this world is a lot. And we have a video that we made that you can go watch, and that's where all of our squeeing is. And we are going to restrain ourselves here for the most part.
So, we were on the topic of the fact that Gillidan is so close to the Two Rivers, because Two Rivers is right on the edge of where Andor's rule is. And that brings us back to Maighdin, who's looking at the Manetheren banner and not happy. Because as queen, that's a rebellion within her borders.
And she had heard about that. That was one of the things that made her speak back against Ravin, was hearing about rebellion in the Two Rivers. This is an important piece of news.
Perrin raising that banner is literally the trigger that got her away from Ravin. That was literally the Ta'veren twist. And now
Which is why she's on the road.
This is Ta'veren twisting, right? When he's like, oh yeah, Ta'veren. It's like, yeah, you raised that banner. She rebelled against Forsaken, and now she's here.
Yeah, that it's very important. And Perrin is just like, oh, Alejandro's not going to like it very much. Oh, no. Meanwhile, Maighdin is having her entire life warped by the fact that this banner is raised. In a good way, in this case.
And he brings up the standard Two Rivers. I guess Morgase was a good queen, but we didn't know anything about,
We don't know much about lawful rulers.
Never had one of those, which is implying you're an unlawful ruler.
Yeah, it's hilarious, because it's but you guys have elections for mayor, and you have a women's circle, and you have a village council. You have law and order in the not creepy meaning of that phrase.
Dun dun.
Yeah, it's hilarious, because it's you do have order. You have rules. You have rules that govern who is in charge. People aren't really ruled over, though. I guess the Two Rivers is pretty autonomous.
Oh, I thought he was just being super sarcastic.
Perrin? Sarcastic?
Yeah. Perrin's sarcastic a lot. He may be serious, but when someone does, brings up ridiculous, because, he's so practical. So when someone's, brings up a ridiculous, he's like, no, that's not, sure, yeah. Let's just go fly over them. I don't know. He's always sarcastic in my head.
Okay, well, he seems rather annoyed here. I didn't read sarcasm in that.
It's the dryness, because he's this dry, he would never make fun of somebody, but I can just see him being a little wry, just a little, little.
I mean, it's really funny if you read it sarcastically. I do enjoy that. That does make Perrin a bit more awesome. But in that vein, there is Desmond's quoting Monty Python in chat. You're the queen? Well, I didn't vote for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How many times do you think Queen Elizabeth has heard that? Do you think people have ever yelled at it?
Oh, it's got to be in the tens of thousands. I mean, so much. And probably not all of them quoting Monty Python, ironically.
And you know what's interesting to me is it's been 30 years since these books came out. Queen Elizabeth is still the queen, and yet I'm guessing she was still the inspiration for Queen Morgase.
Well, I mean, you've also got Elizabeth I.
Sure. Actually, when I say sure, I mean, I have no idea what you're talking about. Please explain.
Red gold hair, big puffy sleeves, the big collars. The imagery of Queen Elizabeth I is very much who a lot of the fan artists take inspiration from when they're depicting Queen Morgase. The grand blonde with ringlets and a red and white and gold theme. It's impossible not to see it. So there's that. But, I mean, you're not wrong that the Queen of England is an institution unto herself at this point. And how could she not be inspiring?
And was an institution 30 years ago when these books were written.
Yeah.
Right, like, and that hasn't changed. Like,
Yeah. And she shares a name with Elizabeth I.
Right.
So, I mean...
There's layers. There's layers.
Layers upon layers. I'm here for it. Yeah.
I love that she has the same reaction to Rand putting Elaine on the Lion Throne that Elaine does. No man puts a woman on the Lion Throne. Ridiculous.
Yeah, Elaine will claim it by her right. And it's like, if Perrin had been there for Elaine's explosion over that might have tipped him over into being like, you remind me of Elaine too much. But instead he's just like, oh, she looks like Elaine. Weird. Moving on with my life.
Yeah, but the circumstances, meeting a queen in this circumstance, you would never, like... Yeah. That's true. But it's such a queenly response. I mean, she looks like Elaine. She's responding like Elaine. Like, it's incredible what he's missing. But I get it. I mean, it's you don't expect it. Why would you expect a simple countrywoman to be the Queen of Andor? You wouldn't. You just wouldn't. And of course, then Lini comes up and smacks her down.
A simple country woman! Smack! Yeah. Because she's trying to keep Maighdin's cover. She's like, what the hell are you doing?
This is
I thought we had a
another
plan.
masterful Kate Redding paragraph.
So good. I love her narration for this.
If this young lord was at odds with Morgase, well, everyone knows she's dead. Everyone knows she's dead. And it's, like, oh, the way she reads that is just, just nails it.
But we should finish this chapter.
Oh my God, we should try. Wow.
We should try.
There's a lot of pages left in this chapter, isn't
Okay. Morgase just yelled at him for trying to put Elaine on the throne. And then Kate Redding does an excellent Lini.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, here we're at. Morgase attempts to apologize to Perrin, and it's extremely bad.
She's not used to apologizing.
No.
So, and then he turns to Master Gill and, basically shocks everyone, being like, I know who you are. Like, Master Gill, I'd like to talk with you, And Master Gill's like, I'm okay, Perrin. Does that little excuse.
It's so intense.
and here we get this great two-level conversation where Perrin is basically trying to find out, like, where they came from and what their history is, and being friendly. He's not trying to, like, catch them out. He's just like, hey, how you doing?
What's up? Fancy meeting you here.
And Master Gill's like, I can't let him know that I'm with the Queen. Oh, crap, I can't let him know I'm with the Queen. What do? I'm so worried. Like, this, he's trying to hide everything, and, of course, Lini, again... Thank God Perrin has absolutely no subtlety, or else this would have just, like, been a big flag to be like, something's going on here. Lini kind of did a terrible job with that.
Yeah, I mean, and he knows something's going on. He's just not acting on it in a way that would be destructive to the whole situation. He's like, I don't know what's going on, so I'm not going to mess with it. And that is, the least harmful thing he could do, basically. But yeah, it's so funny. He's trying to be friendly, and Gill is just like, please stop talking to me. And then Lini's like changing the plan, and Gill freaks out. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, Faile has taken the women off to like wash themselves, and like it's just, oh my God. But Lini's whole situation here is just nonsense. And like Master Girl's like, I was telling the story. And it's physical comedy and it's misdirection.
And I do think he's trying to add some comedy, right? These are his comedic characters. Lini and Master Gill, the silly innkeeper, the dumb bouncer, the nagging babysitter, whatever. There's a better
the weird
word for
old
that.
woman that like yells at everybody.
Yeah, totally. Like, he's trying to insert some comedy here. It's not my favorite comedy.
No, it's, I'm glad that he includes many different kinds of comedy, so there's something for everyone, but this is, not one that does it for me, really.
There's the typical, Master Gill, please stop calling me Lord Perrin. Of course, Lord Perrin. Because it's obvious he's a lord, right? This is the thing. Like, he smells like a lord, he walks like a lord, he talks like a lord. He's a lord. Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that this was all Michael Kramer in the audiobook. So all of our praise for Kate Redding, we were misspeaking. This is a Perrin POV, so it's Michael who did it. And now that I'm playing the tape back in my head, it's definitely Michael. Anyhow, for those of you who were writing emails to us, put down your keyboards. It's fine.
Don't call me out like that. I don't appreciate that.
He was doing a really good impression of Kate. I mean, I misheard it in my head too.
This is where I honestly I have a hard time. When Kate does a male voice, I hear Michael Kramer. When Michael Kramer does a female voice, I hear Kate Redding. They do a very good job of maintaining the same voice for the same character.
Yeah.
And I'm always impressed by that. And I thought that was the most interesting question they answered at SpoilerCon, where someone asked, how do you do that? And they're like, we try and distill what's essential about the voice and then do that in our own voices. We don't try and replicate the other person's voice. And I think that is awesome.
It is.
And again, it fools me because I heard that whole thing in Kate Redding's voice, even though obviously no, it's not.
It's Michael.
Yeah.
So fun extra praise to heap on them because they're the best. So then the next important thing is news of the Shan-Chan.
Mm-hmm.
They bring news of the Shan-Chan to Perrin, and Perrin's like, I don't know that. And they're like, how did you not know? And we talked about this in the last chapter. It's because they had fast traveled past the storm front of the rumors.
Right. They're like behind the rumors at this point.
Yeah.
And also, he's been avoiding everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's literally, he's been weaving in and out since he gatewayed in, trying to make sure no one sees him. So, of course, he's heard no information whatsoever.
Yeah. And hearing about this basically gives him, like, a PTSD flashback. Like, he immediately starts, like, thinking about Falm and people dying and is just not a happy camper for a minute because the Shan-Chan are not good news. And he thought that Rand had bought them, like, a generation, you know, not a few months.
Right. Well, we talked about this, but there's a whole another wave 6 months behind the initial wave, or a year.
Yeah.
I think it was a year, we decided.
Yeah.
And they had the real invasion, not that first the Forerunners. They were nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter how well the Forerunners do. The second wave is coming regardless. And this is a very unwelcome piece of news for Perrin.
Well, the other thing is Rand didn't really even push them that far. They went to a couple of islands, like some miles off the coast.
Yeah, the two sides came away with very different impressions of that battle. And then the next thing I have is one of my least favorite Lini moments.
Oh, why?
Because she tells Perrin to just force Maighdin into marriage with Tallanvor.
Yes, when they get there. Yep.
I'm not a fan of this moment from Lini. Really not.
You've never had a mother decide she knows what's best for you and make that decision and take steps to make it happen without consulting you?
Fortunately, no. Despite having had a mother and a stepmother.
Yeah, I have. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. That's just Lini being like, I know what's best. I'm going to make it happen.
I don't approve.
No.
I don't like that.
No, it's not a good thing. And it does lead to a very problematic moment from Perrin later where he does actively try and force them together. He's like, well, Lini told me to do it, so I should do. And I give him a big pass for that because of this scene, right? Like,
yeah.
I do literally be like, oh, well, that's something someone who thinks he's a lord told him this is something he should be doing. So he's trying to act like a lord and trying to make decisions. And he thinks that making a decision about marriage is one that he can do because of Lini, right? Because Lini.
And then Faile approves. She just disapproves of how he does it. It's so infuriating to me. I just, everything about the Tallanvor situation I don't like from the get-go. And then this level of taking away someone's agency is just...
Now, I do think there's a little bit of, like, someone needs to sit down with her and be like, listen, you love this guy. You need to stop fucking around and, take the plunge, right?
Some counseling, both individually and in couples therapy, like, absolutely. Like, that is a relationship that has... It has potential. I don't really like Tallanvor. I don't really like his whole stalker vibe.
Yeah,
thing.
that if I just stick around long enough, she'll eventually love me.
I
And then it
don't
works.
like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but the fact that she does end up happily with him makes me think that they just need some therapy individually and together, and then this could happen. But Lini just telling Perrin to force it on them is not the correct move.
And I don't see it as him pursuing her this whole time without her approval. What I see is him getting signs of yes, but understanding that she's emotionally damaged.
Yeah, it's messy.
It's messy,
I just
yeah.
don't like it. It's not that I think Tallanvor's in the wrong per se. It's just that I don't like it. Everything about it, and I don't. It's just. It could have been so much better.
And I will admit, it wasn't a great role model for me as a kid. That whole hero worship at a distance is how you get a girl thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It's pretty toxic.
Yeah, it's very
really.
toxic. It's very toxic for both for both the man and the woman in that situation.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not a good way to go about it. Like you're better off making your feelings known and then dealing with them and then either moving on or being successful. Right? Like those like don't pine is my advice to anyone who's a teenager. Do or do not. Be Yoda.
Yeah. And, like, he thinks he's defending her, which he is, it turns out. Like, there's this whole, like, power dynamic, like we were talking about in the last chapter. Like, there is a power dynamic in their relationship that fuels where he's coming from. And that just makes it even weirder to see the strategy work at the end. And, like, it's just...
Okay.
Yeah, don't pine.
Here's my pushback, though. Is any of that comfort coming from the relative age difference? Is any of that coming from the relative power difference where if the genders are reversed, that wouldn't be nearly an issue?
I don't think the age thing bothers me, but man stalking woman is different than woman stalking man in my subconscious. Yeah.
Even though she's in the more powerful position?
Yeah, I don't know if you switch the genders without switching the power position.
Right.
Or if you switch the genders and the power position, those make very different reactions.
It's very different situations. Yeah.
So yeah,
it's just interesting thinking about that and like all the different combinations of, older male king, younger female pursuing him. Oh, he's got all the power in that situation, right? Mm-hmm. But if you do like
but a young queen being pursued by an older guardsman,
ew, right, like that's that feels very predatory, even though the power is with the queen in that situation, technically.
Not historically.
Well,
it's so it's. I wish that thing could have just been better somehow. He could have just been less creepy about it.
And the thing is, she's damaged, right? Like,
and he wants to defend her. He feels very compelled to defend her, and like he literally does protect her. Like, what is he supposed to do? Like, not protect her? She needs protecting. Like,
and there's no one steps over any lines at any point in
it's
that
very
relationship.
chivalrous.
Yeah.
It's got like all that weird like unrequited distance that goes with like chivalric sort of romances, and in that respect it's like, well, it's less creepy because he's not like sniffing her hair or like,
this feels like it could have been like a Jane Austen subplot, like it just
and I feel like
feels
that's maybe what Jordan was going for,
right? Maybe that maybe he just wanted to include more of those like tiny romance things. I feel like maybe if you read his like Foul and Blood series, maybe it's got a little more of that, like his like southern like fantasy romance stuff. Maybe.
I'm gonna read Super Skylake's comment. There's multiple power dynamics going on here. He thinks she is his queen, even though she has renounced the throne still. But he also is better at physical combat than she is, and to her, he is actually her equal right now. But she doesn't want that to be the thing because he is younger than her, so she feels she should have more power than she does. Seems like a pretty good summation.
I'm going to summate the summation and say it's complicated. Like, the two of them have that status on their Facebook. Like, Tallanvor and Morgase are like, in a relationship, it's complicated.
It's really complicated. But it's not ultimately problematic. It's just complicated. And it's good fodder for people to talk about relationships. We do have Perrin think about how women are crazy, though, which is just an unnecessary editorializing. Women are all crazy. It's like, okay, 90s, settle down.
I mean, as much as I don't agree with him, I have had that thought.
People are crazy.
People are crazy, but, sometimes you only have to deal with one gender at a time, so.
Must be nice.
He passes by Faile. Even we haven't really introduced them yet. We get the introduction at the end of this chapter.
Later this chapter, yeah.
But Faile had her own attendants of a sort. Close on 20 young Terrans and Kyrian were sitting cross-legged near the tent, the women in coats and breeches with swords belted on, just like the men. None wore their hair longer than the shoulder, and the men and women both had it tied back with a ribbon, imitating the Aiel tail. So, and we talked about them quite a bit back in Cairhien, back when she picked them up, and that they would become Chaff Aiel.
Yeah, they're just hipster kids looking for culture and appropriating where they will. I mean, they're not really appropriating because they're on the losing end of the power dynamic with the Aiel, but you know what I mean. They've got that hipster cultural kleptomania kind of thing going on, and they're just really committed to this cosplay.
Yeah, but I feel like at some point, Faile takes them and puts them into less of a cosplay. It's like, oh, you want to cosplay it fighting? Here's some weapons and let me train you.
Yeah, they are well into that transition right now. Yeah,
right.
That's fair.
Like, and I feel like it completes when Balwer takes them over.
Yeah.
And I do think the introduction of Balwer to this group and Chaff Aiel as a group is not a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Jordan is like,
Faile
I'm bringing these two together.
Faile and Balwer get along really well for running Perrin's household. It goes. That's gonna be smooth as butter with them.
It's really interesting. You never see them interact. You only ever see him interact with Perrin, never with Faile. Even though he's running Chaff Aiel.
She notices stuff he's doing. He notices stuff she's doing. Like they have, they interact through the systems of their domains, and they're like work out a better relationship, and they're both very happy with it. And
I have to assume there's some conversation between the two of them that's off screen.
Yeah,
that's
it has to be.
Yeah.
Part of her household management. She probably like meets with him just like the head of every other thing. But yeah, their relationship is cool because we don't see it except through its results, really. But yeah, Chaff Aiel, very proud. The next thing that I have is Faile and Maighdin talking, and then Maighdin kind of, gets excused, and Faile's like, I really like her. She's super, super cool. I want to take them in service, And they're both feeling each other out. Like, Perrin sees the feeling out being more mutual than I think Faile does.
Well, of course, Maighdin would consider herself the equal of anybody she sat down with.
Even though she looks like she knows her place.
Right.
Perrin can tell she does not. But Faile just fucking loves her. Faile adores her right off the bat because she's smart and she's feisty and like all these things that like just seem like cool character traits, but are actually like the queenliness bubbling up.
She talks like a queen. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
She's well educated, yeah. And so it's the bringing of that group into as not just for the night, but as permanent servants.
Yeah.
And it's part of what Faile does. She's like, listen, I am creating a household. That's the other thing I think she's very excited about is like, she's been dealing with all of these Two Rivers folks, and none of them know what to do with nobility. None of them know how to serve. None of them have ever been around nobility. Suddenly, this treasure trove of three people who have served quote-unquote nobility and have some clue, even if they're not trained, they at least know how to act and know how to behave around nobility and can be an example for all the Two Rivers folks.
Yeah, totally. And then she goes right into, and I should manage their marriage life. These two should definitely be married, and these two should probably be married because that's totally my right because I'm royalty. It's fine.
I wonder, how much of that is like the feudal society of managing marriages?
I suspect that that's a very feudal thing. I don't know for a fact, but I would strongly suspect that that's where that's coming from.
And we even see that a lot in the Borderlanders, right?
Which she is, so.
Yeah, which she is. When there's that meeting with Rand in the final books, and we're in the head of one of the females, not Aliana.
You mean the beginning of this book? When they're all getting together?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she thinks about marriage.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's
the beginning of this book. We come back to her in the last book.
Right. But that's the whole thing. She's thinking about marrying off her cousin and how she does that all the time. And now someone's thinking about marrying her off. And so the idea of Faile marrying somebody off, like that's just culture.
Yeah. No, that's super, super fair. And yeah, it does feel very period. That's not my favorite. It's again like, okay, 90s, sit down, take a seat. But it's history, whatever, it's fine. Jordan can take inspiration from real life, I guess.
Maighdin, Morgase takes the suggestion as being a serving woman. Why? She's like, what? And then she's like, oh yeah, that is me. She really doesn't guard her reactions well. She chokes on tea at the offer.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know if I've fallen that far yet. Nope.
No, yep.
I have fallen that far.
Oh, go tell everybody else.
Yep. Pretty much.
But also, again, it gives her that connection to power that she needs and wants.
It's not entirely a matter of finding a way to earn her living wage. It's partially she wants to be near this person who she sees as a threat to Andor. And then we do get some of Perrin being very dry and sarcastic, where he says that the Shanchan might be slightly more difficult to tame than Faile, which is adorable. Some excellent flirting.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There's some great sarcasm with Perrin. It's not obvious.
But it says that he's dry here. It is obvious. It's in black and white. It's dry. But here he is being sarcastic. And it's one of his more clever, sweet moments. They might be a touch more difficult than you. Our sworn enemies with thousands of people might be slightly more difficult than you, my love.
That's where he's getting a little bit of the Saldean humor, right? Like, she's proud to be hard to conquer, and he is strong enough to conquer her. That's why she loves him, right? That's the sort of dynamic.
He's starting to get it.
Yeah.
He thinks it's just a joke at this point. He needs to lean in a little harder, but yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, Reed. It's nice to see them getting along well for once in the goddamn books.
They strategize about the banners.
This time I'm burning that bloody banner. And she's like, honey, no.
If they think you're trying to recreate Manetheren, they don't think you're serving the dragon and taking out the prophet. And no one gives a shit about someone trying to recreate a dead country. They do care about the dragon. Right? Like, that's basically what she's saying is, like, pretend you're being an idiot trying to raise up this dead civilization, and that'll be your cover for whatever you're doing for Rand.
Yeah, which is clever.
It's clever. And then he ends up with he kind of ends up with a dead country raised back up again, too. Oops. Oh, wait, my diversionary tactic worked?
Yeah.
And now I have a country?
It's kind of like the producers. But with nation building. And he didn't try to make a horrible country also, which is, different.
Which is good, yeah. Well, and that's the problem, right? Like, he can't do anything half-assed. He does everything so well. Yeah,
no, Perrin is 0 or 60. There's also this line that I am so personally called out by, where Perrin's like, this is a great idea because it makes me look like a dumbass. And Faile says, don't call yourself an idiot, not even sideways like that. You aren't, and I do not like it. She's like smacking him on the head. I'm just like, this is a talk that my warder and I have a lot. And other people in my life where it's like, I talk so bad about myself. And then it's like, there's memes about this. There's comics about this. There's our friends and our family being like, stop talking to my friend that way. Why are you talking to my friend like that? Stop it. And it's like, but I am the worst person. And they're like, no. And it's hilarious and sweet to me that it's Faile of all people that is delivering that line, because she's so problematic in so many ways, and then she's right there saying this thing that, like, I need to fucking learn.
Every time we sit down to record Broken Earth spoilers, I need to just put that on repeat and blast it into your head, because that's when you have we have had that conversation many, many times before Broken Earth. We're like, I don't know if I can do it. I'm like, you can. You'll be amazing. Just do it.
Yeah. No, it's try to be nice to yourself, because there's people who are friends with you. PSA that I will need to internalize.
That's all right. I do the same thing. I had a conversation with Never the other day where I was like, I'm such a piece of shit. I suck at this podcasting thing. I don't even know why I'm doing it. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. I was like, no. She's like, you're being a dumbass.
Yeah. No, it's a great little shame spiral that we've built for ourselves.
Isn't
and I don't
wonderful?
know why so many of us are so good at it, but we are, and it's silly.
There's a cultural aspect to it, I think.
Fair. And also birds of a feather flock together is
totally
part of it as well.
Right.
We get along well with people who speak this language.
I think there's a certain amount of we've dealt with that sort of anxiety by reading these books.
Also that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the treatment has also been the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Imposter syndrome. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Imposter syndrome, but also just like, by being a perfectionist, nothing you make is ever good enough.
Ever.
Because, like, you can always see a flaw in something. I do this with my food as well when I'm cooking, right? There's always, if I'd only taken this off a little earlier or left it on a little longer, or because there's always, everything's either overcooked or undercooked.
Yeah,
like, you can always pick one or the other.
My mother-in-law is like that as well. Every meal is served with an apology.
Yep, that's
for
me.
How it's just like, this is some of the most amazing, delicious, wonderful food I've ever had, and you're serving it with, I'm so sorry, it's this and it's that, and it's
Yep. Every meal I've ever served comes with a an ingredient I either should have added or a temperature I should have maintained, and an apology. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
It's really annoying, and I hate it. So yeah, we should stop calling ourselves idiots, even sideways like that.
Yeah. Yep. We should. Faile thinks so.
So, okay, here's a reference. Alejandra won't be a bit of trouble for Perrin Goldeneyes. That bird is good as Neda's husband. So, reference to the hawk earlier that got the pigeon.
Oh! It's fucking Faile being ready to snatch Alejandra out of her fucking palace. I get it. The allegory. I mean, it's one interpretation, but I love it.
That's the best I can do with that one. So, in reference to that line.
I like it. But yeah, this is all, her line here is in reference to the fact that she sent Faile in to scout so that way she can kidnap Alejandra if she doesn't come willingly, because she's not going to leave Alejandra behind. She's decided that's a thing.
So she says, don't worry about it. I got Alejandra. You think about Massima. So he starts basically looking at the maps and trying to figure out how to deal with Massima.
And there's this whole, like, he needs to impress her. He needs to make her proud, because that's been a theme of this chapter. And it's just like, aw, you're obsessed, little wolf man. Because that's just a thing with werewolf characters, is they're very loyal. So there we go.
I never thought about that as a werewolf character, but I guess it is sort of a werewolf character trait.
I feel like wolves into werewolves, that's a trope, is that they're very, very loyal.
Which is funny because I think that has more to do with dogs and how we think about dogs than we think about wolves. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it works.
Fair enough.
And then we get a POV switch into a very rare Faile perspective. We get a lot more of her in Winter's Heart, but if we ignore that part of the story, then this is a fairly rare perspective from inside her head.
Did he really think she would not find out that he'd hidden the bed in a deep corpse one morning while the carts were being loaded?
Yeah. She's like, honey, I see you moving the giant king-size bed. I see that.
And, it's a decision to make, right? Like, hey, okay, this is too heavy to really carry with us. It's taking up a lot of weight. Let's leave it behind. And so she's like, fine, if you want to make that decision, I'm not going to counter it. But she also, like, had to not let him know that she knew, or else he would bring it with her, and then that would weaken his resolve. And
this whole game of houses within a marriage thing is honestly exhausting to read.
Yep.
Like, the concept of managing a husband, no, that's not how my marriage works. Like, I can barely manage myself. This concept of manipulating and gaming and managing is just like, that's exhausting.
I think that they do come to a better place when they stop managing each other and when they start using each other, right? When they start confiding in each other and yes, there are secrets she keeps, and there's things like he doesn't need to know everything about Faile, but they need to come to the point where he can say, I don't want this bed, and she can say, okay, leave it behind. Not this whole manipulating bullshit, right? Like, this
is why I have such a hard time believing their relationship until later.
Right.
It's like, how are you in love if you can't communicate about that? I don't get it.
It's fair. Because their love isn't necessarily about communicating.
I'm a terrible communicator, but I still don't get that.
Yeah.
Their relationship makes so much sense to me once they start talking. I don't understand how they decided to get this deep into the relationship before developing the relationship I can recognize.
How old are they?
Older than I was when I got married. So, my perspective's all off. Understanding men is impossible. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
90s tropey, a little bit, yeah.
She loves Perrin, she doesn't understand him. Ah!
Yeah. Get used to it. We have a bunch more books.
I hate it.
You ready to dig into it, though?
Yes.
I do feel like we get a bit of a description about what she wants. He was or at least what she's used to. He was so unlike anyone she had grown up with. He never swaggered, and instead of laughing at himself, he was modest. And I do feel like that to me has helped, that line helped me understand what she wants out of a man more than anything else. And not necessarily what she wants, but what she expects and what is weird to her. This, like, not being able to take a compliment, right? Like, that's weird to her.
Yeah.
She's used to someone who's, if he killed, if he was at Dumai's Wells, he'd be like, I killed 100 Aiel with my axe, and I saved the Dragon Reborn, and and that's how he would gain support. And she's like, what are you doing? Why are you? He's like, no, I just helped out at Dumai's Wells. She's like, what? Take some fucking credit, man. Come on. Like,
right?
Seriously.
It wouldn't even be overblown.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't even be bragging. What are you? Yeah.
You say that,
Yeah.
so this, that to me is a certain amount of like, yeah, your humbleness is your bragging, Perrin. Like the whole, I don't call me a lord. Well, yeah, you're still a lord. Like, and that, and so that I feel is like emblematic of her frustration with him. Is this like, stop denying reality. You're a lord.
Yeah. And she expects a lord to be certain ways.
Yes.
So, yeah. So here is an example of his indecisiveness actually showing up externally. Is him behaving like a lord while insisting that everyone pretend he's not a lord. He's trying to ride both those horses at the same time.
Right. And that's where I say he's acting exactly like a lord would, but saying, don't treat me like a lord.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
again,
And
you have to
it's
ignore what he says
confusing.
and show what he's doing. Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's where I think Faile's frustration comes, is this whole like, what he says doesn't match up with what he's doing.
Yeah, no wonder she's confused. She's like, you're behaving not like a lord from my country, but like a lord. And then you're saying you're not a lord and not behaving like a man from any class in my country. And
calling yourself stupid, but yet you find out all my secrets. And yeah, there's some real frustration on her, not from what he's doing, but again, what he's saying, which I think is also what a lot of us are frustrated with him about. Like, what you're saying and what you're doing are different things.
yeah.
Just admit you're doing what you're doing, and everybody will be a lot happier.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, having cross-cultural relationships can be challenging. My husband and I are not from identical cultures, and there have been specific cultural divergence-shaped bumps along the way, shall we say. It's fair. It's nice to get into her head and see where her frustrations with Perrin are, rather than seeing Perrin's view of that, because it does make a lot more sense from where she's sitting. Like, she's way less sucky from her own perspective, and that's not just her bias. It's getting out of Perrin's bias.
Mm-hmm. So she's creeping out of camp to meet with Faile.
She notices a cool breeze.
Oh, yeah. I missed that.
Yeah. It's not
Just
really
trying-
relevant, but
No,
she notices it.
She notices it. Yep. Of course, that's where he's going to put it in, though, in places where it's not relevant.
Yeah.
She sneaks out, passes by Maighdin and folks, and I think she's trying to sneak by them, and she snaps a twig, and when they turn and look at her, she's like, yes, you're doing well. Just checking up on you. Go to sleep. Don't stay up too late.
I'm
and
so
then
kind.
I'm so kind.
Look at how kindly I am.
But she's entirely trying to sneak by them, and only like has to make up an excuse on the spot when they see her.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And they're all trying to decide, like, do we take off in the middle of the night? And she's like,
Right.
it's fine, peons, you're good. And they're like, okay,
Right. Well, I mean, I think they're settling in. I think they're just discussing their future because they've agreed to be.
no, they are arguing about if they're going to stay.
Okay.
Because Tallanvor is gesticulating wildly.
He wants to
Maighdin
go.
has just told them we're staying, and he is like, the fuck we are.
Right.
And she even notices the clothes again, being like, those are not the right clothes for servants unless they were really beloved. It's dressed fit for a queen on that one there.
Must be a great servant.
Yeah. She's an awful
Awful
servant
servant,
at
yeah.
first. She has to learn how to servant.
So what she's actually doing is she is meeting her spies, her Faile that she sent into town to figure out what's going on and basically report on the status of the town.
Doing recon.
We're doing recon, yeah. And it's basically the town is isolated, in trouble. No one's on the streets. There's no commerce. Everyone's scared of the prophet. The queen is powerless. And we've seen Alejandra. That was where she knelt to the prophet. She gave him all the jewels.
With
That
Nynaeve,
was
yeah.
from Nynaeve's POV, where she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, she's surviving. And that was with Uno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And so things have not gotten better for her.
No. No, and this is the first place where we get the name Faile and kind of a description of their society, but we've been talking about them like we know who they are and what they're doing this whole time. But this is where the term actually comes up.
This is
the
Faile,
Falcon's
yep.
Talon. Very clever. Absolutely love it. And there's this whole thing about like the women like pretending that they don't mind being naked in front of the men because that's what Aiel do. And like, as someone who's grown up amongst a bunch of feral hippies, I am very familiar with the Muggles who are not comfortable with the hippies but are trying to be comfortable with the hippies at the nudist hot spring or at country fair.
Eyes do a lot of darting.
That's a very familiar scene.
What's that? Oh, am I supposed to look at that? I can't look at that. I want to look at that. Ooh.
That one's painted, so I think I'm supposed to look.
Yeah. Oh God, I've been staring for too long. What do I do now?
Yeah, it's a familiar vibe to those of us in the Pacific Northwest counterculture scene at all. It's fun. And the men are all just as awkward because they're just as in that position of they're imitating a culture where nudity is normal and for them it's not, and it's funny.
And Faile is verifying very particularly that no one searches wagons leaving the city. That has to mean she's thinking about sneaking Alejandra out.
Yep. She absolutely is planning on kidnapping her and bodily removing her to Perrin's camp. That's a plan that she has.
Awesome.
I love Faile for that. It's like,
and it works.
Way to not, pull any punches. And she doesn't end up needing the plan because Alejandra comes along voluntarily.
I thought they did smuggle her out. No. Okay.
No, Faile gets quite annoyed actually that her plan is not necessary. She's glad that Perrin convinced her to come, but she's a little annoyed that all of her planning is not going to be followed through on.
It's kind of like all that planning to escape from the Aiel camp when she gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
It all becomes nothing when Perrin just kills everybody.
Yeah, totally like that. Except she's less annoyed in the second instance.
Mm-hmm. So we hear the Faile acting surprised when they get the instructions.
There's something I want to talk about before that.
Yeah,
is
go for it.
Salanda.
Okay.
Salanda had something extra, a steadiness, as if she had already faced the worst fear of her life and nothing could ever be that bad again. You remember where we saw Salanda before?
Wasn't she the one who was forced with Rand?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
she was the one we actually saw that Colliver was pushing forward. Right. She was the only one of a stream, but she's the one that we saw Rand be like, I can channel,
Yeah.
I'm going to take you swimming with the power. And like, she was absolutely terrified. And then we saw her when they came back from Dumai's Wells and Rand looks at her and says, don't be afraid. And Perrin's like, how does he know?
Right.
All of that is because of Rand. And Perrin just happens to be crossing circles with this woman. I love Solanda's like C-tier arc.
She's an example of the Taviran tearing someone out of their existing path and putting them on a completely different one. She was a pampered noble in Cairhien, and now she's a spy for Faile in the backwaters of Perrin's. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. She's the dragon breaks all bonds, all of that, and she was put through this traumatizing experience that has led to her becoming a new kind of person, and it's great. It's a fun story to track in the background.
And that's the end of Faile's POV. She sends them off, and we switch to Morgase POV,
which is very rare.
Yeah, we get a couple of them to sort of scattered throughout to like. Because, we pick her up. We got one in Amadisia, right?
I think we maybe even got two. Because there's one before Niall dies and one after. Yeah.
And we get her escape as well. So this might be probably the fourth or fifth Morgase POV.
Yeah.
They're rare, but they're not unknown.
There's like two or three more, I think, before the end. Yeah. But yeah, this is when you get into, she's not Morgase, she is Maighdin. This is where you get that conversation where she's trying to convince herself that she's Maighdin.
Not very good at that, is she?
Not yet.
Not really ever, in my opinion.
And Dorlane is the name of an estate, is that the estate that Elaine just exploded her way into?
Oh, it might be.
I kind of think it is, but I'm not sure because I forgot to look it up. I'm sorry.
Not in this book.
Okay. Different. Does Dorlane show up somewhere else? Am I just confusing that with another random town name?
I got nothing.
Okay, I'm confusing it with another town that comes up like twice in the whole series. That checks out.
Yeah, the only thing I can search for is her name. I don't find any map evidence or any other references to it.
Okay.
There's no Dora Lane entry in the wiki or anything like that.
Well, I trust the nerds who came before to have covered that for us. So.
Yeah, so much of the research has been done for us, but yeah.
So she thinks condescendingly about how Faile got good material in her to be worked with.
And then Tallanvor, entering service. What are you up to? And don't tell me that nonsense about making a new life. I don't believe it. Nobody does.
She was just telling herself that,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow.
No, I completely believe that because she's not about starting a new life. She's trying to find a new source of power and influence it.
But she doesn't know that about herself. She believes her own bullshit, which is a problem because it is bullshit.
It is bullshit.
But she believes it. Oh, Morgase.
Because if she was just starting a new life as a tea server, that would be better for her.
It ends up being a great thing for her when she's able to submit and surrender to life under the Shido. That it's healing for her because she's not doing it here. She's not submitting and starting a new life here. But she will beat you into submission herself to make you agree, which is why their relationship is not a relationship.
Mm-hmm. I like, it must be more the chance that brought me to his henchman, Tallanvor. It has to be. I like how she describes Perrin as one of the Dragon Reborn's henchmen.
Yeah.
It's such a like, oh, wow. You really don't think highly of him at all at this point.
No, it's, yeah.
And of course, Elaine is safe in the White Tower. The Emerald Seat won't let her anywhere near a man who can channel, even if he is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
Nope, you're wrong, Morgase.
Yeah.
First of all, the Emerald Seat isn't even who you... Well, no, she knows Elida took over, right?
No. She's been out of the loop since before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's got no idea about the split or anything.
That's crazy to me. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. There's this line here, better as a lady's maid than a tavern maid. RJ canonically says that there's no prostitution, and yet this line sure does seem to suggest that the world's oldest profession is alive and well in Randland.
I will reference Harriet's quote, Robert Jordan lies.
Yeah.
We've seen many quotes that prove that the world's oldest profession is going on frequently. And I don't know where that quote is where Jordan said, no, yeah, there's no prostitution, but I'm assuming it was in front of children or something like that. You know, like...
Yeah, that's fair. Purity culture is a thing.
Yeah, I don't believe him. Because again, as we talked about, I think earlier in this episode, right, like the world is fully realized. And even though there may not be prostitution in the world, we understand that a complete world includes prostitution.
Yeah, because sex work is work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Cool. Robert Jordan lied to keep it PG. I'm into it. She also notices that the night is getting cool. Everyone's noticing it.
Oh, God, man, I'm skipping right over those weathers.
Yeah, Maighdin Dorlin can watch. She can listen. Ah. Oh, the air's kind of cool. Interesting.
Oh, the night actually seemed a little cool. Or maybe the goosebumps were from Tallanvor's unseen eyes on her. The thought roused a flush in her cheeks he hoped he could not see.
Robert. This is like the spiciest thing that he writes. I
Right,
swear.
I know. Like the next scene, I'm like, she felt a throbbing deep within her loins. Like that's.
Yeah, with any other writer.
Yeah.
But nope, this one is just fade to black on the emotional tension.
Thank you, Harriet.
Yes, thank you, Harriet. Yeah, Tallanvor's not impressed with Perrin, or he is impressed in the let's stay away from him sort of way. Like a beast. He's got yellow eyes. Meh.
I like the way they think of him as this thug with a hammer and yellow eyes and a big army, and like they don't think of him as thoughtful, gentle Perrin. That's not who they see.
Which, like, honestly, if you consider the aspects of Thor that people don't remember now, and the fact that Thor is a fertility god who's built like a, heavyweight wrestler, not a bodybuilder, and he's not just a god of war, he's a god of crops, this kind of all fits. Half the image is just completely obscured by the other half. Like... Yeah.
I also think we liked seeing this group described through Perrin's eyes, and now seeing Perrin described through their eyes.
We're like, ew!
Yeah, exactly.
You're so wrong. Perrin's
so
better
wrong.
than that. That's funny, actually. That is a hilarious POV hypocrisy that RJ is putting me through right now.
So they do that whole tell me to go and I will leave and never look back.
Oh
and
my
she
God.
doesn't say go. So he's like, I hold a flame deep in my heart that one day you will accept me as a man and a woman, and together we can have a wonderful relationship and babies. And oh my God, and I hate it. Yeah, it's romance. It's a bad romance novel. You never said go, so I hold a hope in my heart. Like if you had said go, I would have given up hope, but I still would have followed you because I can never give up following you. Yeah. I'm just like, all right, play me a fiddle. Just it's too much.
Just stop. This is just. I've already seen Downton Abbey. That is enough.
Right.
Of that for one lifetime.
But like, I really do feel like he's referencing like Jane Austen. And,
Yeah.
like I feel like he's like this is the English. This is their ridiculous drama. This is how they do it. I'm gonna reenact it here.
In this very low tier plot that nobody cares about, and I'm just gonna have my little. Oh, it's so.
Should have named Tallanvor Heathcliff and maybe named her Catherine.
It's so much.
It's so much.
I mean, it's kind of adorable that he's able to fit that entire genre vignette into this larger high fantasy thing. It's kind of impressive.
And that's what it feels like he does. It feels like he's writing this little like vignette story in like a different genre inside the fantasy world.
It's kind of impressive, honestly. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, he did a really good job at making this feel out of place and out of time and other. Part of me hates it, and part of me is like, but good on you. It's a trip.
And then she goes to bed and thinks desperately about Tallanvor.
It's an identity crisis. She's just undergoing a multifaceted identity crisis, and there's hormones being involved, which doesn't help anything.
Right. When sleep finally came, she could still feel the pressure of his lips on her eyelids. It's sexy.
I mean, it does make one get a little aflutter. Yeah, she missed herself a little bit.
Yeah. I got the vapors.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not my favorite romance, but it is I think when people are like, Jordan doesn't write romance, I'm like, yeah, he does.
He writes romance better when the characters are held apart.
Yeah.
The more they're held apart, the better the romance writing is, I think.
Unless you do it too much, and then you end up with an Elaine Rand situation, where it's like, wait, what, do they even know each other? Why are they in love again?
Or Maureen and Tom.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that one's almost... Well, I don't know. We don't need to get into a whole discussion about how masterful or confusing that relationship is.
For that, there was more of a flirting, and then, like, I feel like with Morgase and Tom, that's two old people.
Yeah, that's
who
different.
know themselves really well, and like I also want to go into I'm pretty sure they knew each other 20 years ago back in court when she was in Cairn and he was in Camelin, and they were both in court, and those courts were interacting all the time. Like, I'm convinced they have a longer history than we are aware of.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, whichever relationship you pick, it's still a better romance than Twilight.
Always.
You can never have a worse romance than Twilight. It's a canonical fact on the internet.
Timber was licking himself while you said that, and that's a better romance than Twilight.
That's terrible. Well, it looks like we managed to make this recording slightly longer than the last one.
Okay.
In fairness, the tangents were brutal.
The tangents were brutal. This needs to be cut down quite a bit. We got this is why we stopped doing 2 episodes in one day, because the second one got punchy. That was actually definitely something I was noticing, is episode 2 was always like worse.
It's just spicier.
It's spicier, yeah, especially with the drink in me. Yeah, it's one of those things that makes me go,
It's wonderful.
Kate Redding must have known knows who Morgase is, groks that, understands why Lini's saying what she's saying, and is putting that emphasis into the character. So it's like, gosh, when she says, well, I don't really know these books that well, I'm like, bullshit.
I mean, she doesn't know them well now.
No, that's fair.
She knew them well then.
And I guess part of it is she knows the characters really well without necessarily knowing the books really well. And I feel like she's able to jump into a character and maybe get the tone without even understanding why.
Sure.
And I feel like that adds so much to her. For me, I've seen a lot of acting. Obviously, I've watched a lot of TV and I've seen a lot of plays. But for me, it's not until actually seeing how much voice actors, stripping away all the visuals and just doing the voice and be like, oh, they're putting so much understanding and comprehension and interpretation into that one medium. It helps me understand what acting is and how that can then apply to the visual medium as well.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get it looking at acting.
Totally.
But I get it when I hear voice acting. Does that make sense? It's it's simpler. I can distill it down into what they're actually doing and what makes the characters different.
No, yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, I also am quite the consumer of visual acted content. AKA I binge Netflix way too much.
Well, I was going to say, we are a couch potato. Hey!
But no, there's definitely something about getting emotion from only one medium that forces you to hear what they're doing in a different way.
Speaking of which, Lock and Key on Netflix.
Haven't watched it.
Season 2 came out. I really do like it. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying I really do like it.
Gotcha. I watch things that are not good that I like.
It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. It's just, but it's like, it puts magic on TV. It's a hard magic with a very specific set of rules. And so like I really like the way they're able to. It's good fantasy on TV, which I see so rarely.
Cool. I did not enjoy the trailer of it at all, but that's quite the recommendation.
It definitely follows the trope of five young kids in a family, like.
I'm fine
magic.
with tropes.
Yeah, okay.
It's just I wasn't compelled by the promo, but I know that promos are very misleading.
Definitely, and I will say the first season, I haven't quite finished the second season. The first season does a very good job with twists.
Yeah, so I might give it a go because that's a better recommendation than the trailer.
Right, because and shows like that, they start off kind of tropey, and then they twist into something that's like they violate. Sure. Same way that Wheel of Time starts off as Lord of the Rings and then twists that expectation into something else. I feel like that's what Lock and Key is doing.
That's cool. Yeah, that's neat. Feed my Netflix addiction when I should be trying to rein it back. That's cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, we just talked about what a problem we had, and then I was like, so you want to hit?
Yeah, pretty much. Rude. Drug pusher. Though I'm not sure if I'm allowed to watch Netflix again. We were supposed to be boycotting it because they're being dumbasses about I forget what because I'm high. But
I was gonna say you're gonna have to be more specific because they've been dumbasses about a lot lately.
It was because of the Dave Chappelle special, and then there was a walkout, and then they fired the person organizing the walkout, and I don't know if we're allowed to watch Netflix again.
And I have not spent the time to investigate that to have an opinion about it. I'm aware there's a controversy. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's pinged on enough different radars that I'm like, well, it's definitely happening, but the specifics of it are, I don't have the brain cells. But I did just discover that my mom had renewed our shared Amazon Prime account, so now I have everything on Prime that I haven't been watching because I was not paying for Prime, and I was going to go re-up it for the Wheel of Time show, and turns out my mom's getting it already for us, so now I have all the Amazon stuff I've been deprived of, so I can afford to just ignore Netflix for a while I try to binge my way out of a binge addiction. It's great. Super healthy.
I did take Friday off, November 19th.
Oh yeah, that Friday.
Yeah. So ready to binge.
Yeah, I might have like one of my local community meetings like on that afternoon, but I'm like, whatever, it's not coming out till late in the evening anyway. I can go to a meeting. It's fine.
Well, is it coming out late on the evening on Thursday?
See, I was trying to look this up and I couldn't figure it out.
So my understanding is it's Thursday night at midnight Pacific time.
Fuck.
So
well,
AKA
I might need to reschedule that community meeting then.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So it's like, do I stay up till midnight and start watching 3 one-hour episodes and watch them till 3 a.m.?
I mean, you're gonna be watching them repeatedly anyhow.
Yeah.
It's not like this is your only chance to watch them. Like, you can absolutely just watch them until your eyes bleed and lose half the details and then go back and watch them again. It's fine. Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
Support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?